Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric Entertaining series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project. More specifically, in this instance, the MiSTer Pi and Taki Udon's retro remake. Currently working on the SuperStation One, and you guys have all been asking me in comments and on Twitter and everywhere else if I have any updates on the SuperStation One. So there have been a bunch of them coming over the last week or so. So we're going to take a recap of what the SuperStation One is, when it should be shipping, and a lot more features, including a new UI and a new dock design. And if you're not aware, or you weren't quite sure, this is basically a MiSTer FPGA in a PlayStation 1 style case with custom boards inside. It's still going to have the exact same specs as something like a DE10 Nano, which is to say that Cyclone 5 FPGA with the ARM cores inside the die. So it is a MiSTer FPGA, it's just one that doesn't look like anything else you've seen before. And it's been fun to go over all of the process on this because I know a lot of people want to jump into MiSTer FPGA, but they want something that looks a little bit neater next to their television. They want something that looks like a traditional console that just ships from a manufacturer and you open it up out of a box like any sort of PlayStation, Nintendo, or Xbox console out there. And I do like the fact that the case is designed around the PS1, mostly the actual smaller derivative versus the original. It was such a clean design, and if you weren't aware, obviously, MiSTer FPGA has a full PlayStation 1 core written by Robert for FPGA Sum's boss, who's done an incredible job just making the PlayStation 1 feel like it is perfect on MiSTer FPGA. It is such a fun time, and if for some reason you haven't tried that core yet, you definitely owe it to yourself to do so. So getting this brand new console is going to be a ton of fun, and last time we talked about it, they were still working on revisions to the dock, and some of those have come through, and we'll explain those in just a bit, because this is going to have the ability to read CDs from that dock and then go ahead and load them onto the actual FPGA chip inside. Now it seems like these are going to be dumped into internal memory, that way when you put the disk in, it'll identify the disk and then load up that particular file. That's just something that MiSTer FPGA has a limitation on, but we went over all of the different USB ports, everything else that was going on here. There have been some minor changes to the dock that we'll go over in this video, but it's great that this is definitely an optional accessory if you don't want to put in original CDs, you just want to use a SuperStation One like you would any other MiSTer FPGA. You can do that without ever adding the dock. You just lose that ability to dump CDs and have them load on command. You're still going to get all of the different ports and everything like that, and Taki Udon's going to go over some more details on those, including the mechanical fitment of everything, which we'll definitely cover in the video. But this is looking so promising. All the new details are a ton of fun, and again, some of the designs have slightly changed, and that makes sense. I appreciate that Taki Udon Retro Remake have been very open with the process of designing these objects, talking about the overall fitment, the mechanical engineering that goes into them, and the changes they make along the way to get a better end user experience when these things are actually underneath your televisions and next to your PCs for capture. So basically, there's been a ton of new updates, and one of the big ones has been on the new UI or user interface, because obviously on the MiSTer FPGA side of things, we have a very rudimentary user interface. It has text, it has options, it doesn't have any cover art whatsoever. You can do custom backgrounds, but honestly, it is very functional, but it doesn't really do much on the aesthetic, which is fine for a lot of people, myself included, but I get people want this overall UI, and Taki Udon showing off, at least on the PlayStation section here, all of the games that are loaded up into this UI, as well as the fact that you're going to be able to have the actual disk images and cover art on there. You'll see a Spyro of the Dragon, and if we go over to the next page, you just have a text version as well, so it's a little bit cleaner, a little bit more design than the MiSTer FPGA user interface. I think this is going to make a lot of people happy, but it seems like you can definitely hit Y for that mode button and switch from both just a text list as well as the list that has the cover art, and he does talk about how those are ingested as well, and we'll go into that in a moment. But this is, at least right now, what the SuperStation One user interface is going to be looking like when you open the box when it ships later on this year. And you'll see here they even have a core menu, links, Game & Watch, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Pocket, Pokemon Mini, Supervision, and Wonder Swan. A very fun little set of cores there, and that's something that I think people really are going to enjoy. Now, a user did ask if there's going to be a cover art scraper, and Taki Udon stated yes, but that the ARM processor on this actual board is quite slow, and that is completely true, so maybe it would be better to actually get the images off your PC and load them onto the SuperStation One, and that is because, yes, the ARM cores inside the Cyclone V, this Altera chip here, aren't the fastest in the world. They're not meant for a massive amount of heavy lifting. When you're ingesting stuff like cover art, you're basically downloading and sorting a lot of files all at once, and all of those different downloads and sorts basically on the CPU can cause a little bit of a slowdown because it's doing a lot of very small things all at once. It's processing a lot of data versus just doing one thing. So do be aware that while that seems like it might be working, maybe the other way would be to just grab the images from your PC and move them over to your SuperStation One. And somebody asked if the UI can be used on MiSTer Pi. I'm assuming they mean the Master Shake derivative version, and Taki says yes, you're going to be able to use the UI on MiSTer Pi as well in the future. So it seems like there's going to be a fork that allows for this to go to that triple stack. And he uploaded some other images as well of the main menu. You have resume, load core, history, favorites, update, and settings. Nothing much different than you would see on something like a MiSTer FPGA, just in a slightly different configuration. Kind of feels like a mix between the MiSTer FPGA UI and something Analog would do with some nicer icons. You'll see here they've broken it out into arcade, computer, console, and handheld cores, which cover basically everything on MiSTer FPGA as far as cores are concerned. Usually we see them as a text menu, but now there are a couple nice icons here, and it seems like you're going to be able to change the color. And Taki also said on Twitter you'll be able to upload custom backgrounds as well. So he's just showing it here with solid masks of color, but if you wanted to put up your own image, as long as it didn't interfere with the color of the icons, I'm sure it would look quite nice. And you'll see we also have a couple other examples of different colors you can use, and I would say this looks quite appealing to the eye. It's not overly complicated, it's not overly flashy, but it does give a little bit more visual flair than what we're used to on MiSTer FPGA. You'll see another user here asked if any keyboard or controller can be used to navigate that UI, and Taki says you can navigate with a controller, so it's not quite clear. Obviously those PlayStation 1 ports are going to be snack control adapters, and that's something that doesn't usually control the menu on MiSTer just in the game, so we'll have to wait and see on that. You'll see again, as I noted, someone asked if you can upload your own backgrounds for this new SuperStation One, and that's just a straight up yes, so we know that that will be easy. And for the people wondering when that second batch of pre-orders for the MiSTer Pi will be shipping, it looks like it's going to be the first week of April according to Taki. I know it's been a little bit of a distance in time between the two shipments, but I'm sure with everything going on in the world right now, part sourcing and everything else, there are delays, and he's been quite communicative of that. Now on the dock side of things, the design has changed a little bit as well, and I think for the better, because he was kind of proposing a curved lip that would go around the SuperStation One almost like bumpers, and that, while looking decently nice, I don't think was anyone's really favorite. But we still have exactly the same thing we had on the system before, two PlayStation 1 controller ports and memory card ports that would be snack. We have that micro SD in the front as well as one USB port, and on the dock we have the 4 USB ports as well as the actual disk drive in and of itself. And again, this is completely optional. You do not have to buy the dock for the SuperStation One to function. It really just is for disk loading, so do remember that. And that's the screenshot I took for the thumbnail. Figured you want to see a little bit behind the scenes on how the sausage gets made here. If we take a look at the top of the dock without the SuperStation One attached, you can see that connector there almost looks like MagFit. I'm not sure what connector that is, so I'm just guessing, but it doesn't really seem like it presses in. Maybe it just makes contact as they sit together. And there are going to be apparently some screws here to hold the two units as one. And I also have a black option. You'll see in the back it has a USB-C port in as well as an S-video port, so I'm not exactly sure what these are used for. It could be that if you have the dock, you just need to power the dock, and then the rest of the power for the SuperStation One will go up through those pins you see on top. And as far as the S-video port, maybe they move that down to the bottom. I don't have an answer, so I'm just saying I don't know exactly why that is there. And someone even asked if there's going to be enough clearance for the different USB ports and chunkier adapters, and they say they've checked all of the mechanical interference and fitment, which is a very quality move, because I have a super gun that can't actually plug two DB15 ports next to each other unless you shave down the plastic, and I think that drives me absolutely nuts. So I'm glad that they've checked all of that. But I think the big thing that people are going to be excited about is seeing this new custom UI for MiSTer FPGA with cover art, with listings of the games and everything else that you want to see when you're playing around. And just if you're curious, it seems like both the classic gray and transparent blue are now sold out at the pre-order price, but they will be offered later in the year. So if you missed out on those, it seems like you're going to get another opportunity to grab them in the future. But that's the current situation with the SuperStation One. All of the different updates we have right now. We have that look at the new custom UI. We have information on the overall fitment of the USB ports. We have information on how the dock changes configuration to secure it, and we know when the new MiSTer Pi batch should be shipping. So next time we have some more fun updates, I'll definitely run a video, and hopefully sometime early fall I'll be able to review the SuperStation One in front of the camera. But for now, if you have any questions, leave them down below. But we're done, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.